I've been trying to big up all the United players, but biscuit wrists. He's been stinking out for them as well. He's been doing it for them as well. And all of this chat about he might only be rubbish for Man United. I don't think so. I just think he's just
He's
absolutely rubbish. Welcome back to the social media derby. Before we kick off the pod, I just want to say for those of you watching on YouTube, please make sure to follow, subscribe, share, like, comment down below. We always try and engage with everyone on all platforms, but especially YouTube. Smash a like as well if you can. For those of you listening on the audio platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please make sure to share, follow and leave a 5-star review if you can. Let's get into the pod then, Jonts. How you doing, mate? You all right? It's your birthday week pod. You feel like it's been a good one?
Well, yeah. No, I mean, in terms of the Arsenal result, couldn't have gone any better. So I'm feeling upbeat coming into this week's pod.
Coming in off the back of a 5-0 is definitely better than the last couple of results you've had before.
Exactly.
Before this one, you had a bit of a wait as well, didn't you? Obviously, we're kind of wrapping up now the January winter break, getting back into the swing of it. I've been looking at the schedule. It's so weird, isn't it? Just quickly before we get onto the match, just random topic. December, there's like 8, 9, 10 games. There's so many fixtures everywhere. And then as soon as you hit January, like, if you're not in the FA Cup, you might only have... I think you've only got, like, 2 games in the month or something crazy. United have only got, like, 4. So it's like, unless you're in the League Cup semi-final double headers, which I think Liverpool, Chelsea, those guys are in, Fulham, then you've really got only, like, a handful of games in January. Just seems like the planning of the calendar needs to be worked out, because it's ridiculous. How can you have like 8, 9, 10 games in December and then suddenly in January you've got so few? Surely you could just like spread them out, surely, and then stop some of the fatigue and the injuries that everyone's getting.
I think it's also like partly because of the tournaments that are on as well. So I think they're trying to see if they can try and get the biggest viewership. So what they'll do is they'll just reduce the number of games now because they know some people might be watching AFCON or Asia Cup, and then come back in February when a lot of teams are already out of that. Premier League teams are strengthened, and then there's less of that football to watch. Maybe I think that could be the tactic, because to me, the whole reason why they've got so many games in December is because they know that it's getting close to Christmas time. They're, people are watching more telly because they're at home and they're off work and stuff like that. So I think it's partly to do with that as well. And just trying to let some of the other tournaments have a bit of shine maybe during those times, even like the EFL Cup and whatever else.
I think you're being way too kind. I don't think they give a flying about the Asia Cup or AFCON. Maybe it's the players that are leaving, like Salah's and all the big players, Son and stuff like that. They kind of see that it might not benefit them to kind of show as many games when the viewership might be dropped in those nations. But yeah, it's interesting anyway. I think it's no coincidence that you're seeing the injuries that you're still getting now in January off the back of all the games in December. I think, yeah, man, they've got to try and work this out. It feels like the football calendar is just really poorly organised, and it's normally just to maximise the money that the TV companies and the league can make from all the games.
It's only getting bigger as well, right? Like, what do they have? Was it like the Super Cup or the Club World Cup as well now as part of the calendar, sending our best team out to, was it Saudi Arabia or Qatar? Where was it this time? But yeah, I think it's just the calendar's getting bigger and bigger, and I expect that it will just continue to expand until teams have to have like 45-man squads or something.
Yeah, that is the way it's going, isn't it? Definitely an NFL-style squad will probably be needed. But anyway, let's get into the Arsenal result. We talked about it a bit earlier, 5-0 to the Arsenal. We talked about it on the last pod. Both of us went for a conservative 2-1. In the end, was far from that. Pretty comfortable. Well, at least the scoreline looks that way. What did you make of it, Johns? Performance and the result?
I think the performance was really positive. It was, obviously we lined up with a completely different team this time, right? We had Trossard playing on the left wing. Jesus was back. I mean, Zinchenko back at left back. It's not exactly the team sheet that I would have wanted to see. To be perfectly honest with you, I would think, oh no, Arteta's tinkering again. But it worked, and I particularly like the defensive portion of it. We did really, really well. I think Gabriel had obviously a class game, doing what he does best, which is getting on the end of crosses and corners and stuff like that. But I think generally speaking, our front line was really good. Trossard was great. Jesus and him linked up quite well. Saka, people like Saka, Odegaard didn't have like their best games, and it was just really the other players that really kind of took over in the end. And then I think, scoreline wise, it flatters to deceive a little bit because obviously 2 very late goals from Martinelli, both essentially identical in terms of the finish. But there was something about those finishes that made me, kind of reminisce on really, because it's just that opening up of the body and just slotting it into the far corner. It was great to see. And I didn't get to fully watch the whole game live, but watched back some of the highlights, and obviously a lot of goals from set pieces. And I think that's probably where we're going to see most of our success this year because of how teams are lining up against us. So generally speaking, it was a really good adaptation from how we've been playing and performing in the last few weeks, right? So it was good to really, I'm hoping, put an end to a bad run of results with a very like kind of defiant performance to just, because I'll be honest with you, Crystal Palace they're not great. They're not doing the best they could be right now. And I know that a lot of their fans came over to the Emirates with a big sign and saying that they're moving backwards and calling out basically Hodgson for, what they're seeing as like an injustice done to their team. But they're a good side. They can cause you problems. I think we've seen it with other teams, right? They've got players like Eze. I know that Elise didn't play, but they've got good players in that team, and they can cause you problems. And I think the fact that we kind of dispatch them so easily just kind of shows that we do have quality when we can get things going. So overall, is promising. For an Arsenal fan, I'm hoping we can put in more performances like that. How did you see the game?
Yeah, to be honest, I thought the performance was decent. The result was phenomenal. 5-0 is unbelievable. It's going to lift the morale. You already see all the online Arsenal fans swaying from one extreme to the other. And I get it, because 5-0 at home, off the back of the form you've had, you've been kind of struggling at home as well. Most of your best performances have either been away or in the Champions League. So 5-0 in the Premier League against a team that generally make it pretty hard for opponents in a low block, with good old Roy with his kind of wily ways. I thought it was a really good result. I think the performance was decent. I think set piece wise, whoever your set piece coach is, he deserves a little bit of, I hope he gets a bit of a bonus, because it was basically him 3, Crystal Palace 0 at one point.
He's the guy that we stole from City, isn't it? Nicholas Jovan, or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Nicholas Jover, I think his name was.
Jover,
I think he was either at City and then before that at Brentford. I know he was at Brentford at some point. So, it's not always going to come off. I remember earlier in the season, some people were criticising the goals that you were conceding from set pieces. So it's a swings and roundabouts one, you know what I mean? We've had that guy, Eric Ramsey, at United for ages, and he's supposed to be a set piece specialist. And we don't really concede from set pieces normally that much, unless you're Tottenham. But then we don't score a single goal from set pieces either. So it's a hard one. But yeah, he definitely earned his wages this week. And Gabriel, man, we've talked about it so many times on the pod. You've mentioned it so many times. Okay, he, has a bit of a bozo gene, although, man, he's been kind of working on it. I can't really remember too many mistakes he's made or clangers he's made for a while. But he is deadly from set pieces, man. He's really big, and he comes up clutch with headers, often like first goals in games and stuff like that. So big up Gabriel. I know the second one was nicked off him, which I thought was a bit harsh. Although I do love to see Dean Henderson score own goals. That makes me slightly happy. So
it was bloody on target as well. That's what infuriates me. It was on target. Like, why are they not taking it away from him?
It's when it like hits off something and bounces off and then hits the goalie. Like, it's unfair. Didn't Jorginho score one like that against Aston Villa last season away, and it was a banger of a shot. And I think Martinez saved it onto the bar, and then it bounced back and hit his went in or something, and it was an Emiliano Martinez, Emi Martinez own goal, which is so harsh. But when it's Henderson, I can live with that. But yeah, set pieces were good. Obviously, the last 2 goals in added time kind of take it to that point. But you mentioned it at the time, proper Gabriel Martinelli comes on, scores 2 almost identical finishes, very Henry-esque curl bottom corner, clinical as hell. When people have kind of been questioning Martinelli, so I felt like that was a good way to silence some of his doubters. But overall, man, you can't really complain with a 5-0. I don't think it was like your best performance ever or something, or
No,
most complete performance, but the result's great. Does good for your goal difference, where up in the table it's so congested. All of that stuff counts.
Yeah.
So I think you can't really complain, man. And it was a 12:30 kickoff, so you can just go off into the weekend and enjoy it properly off the back of a really strong performance. So yeah, man, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be really happy about the result. And yeah, your performances are a work in progress. I mean, like you said earlier, there are a couple of players who I think were average, but I don't think there were any terrible performances. I thought Raya was pretty decent. I know he made that one slightly dodgy back pass, but then he made a good save pretty quickly after it. He obviously set up where he was the pre-assist for the Trossard goal on the counter with a really good throw out to Gabby Jesus. So that was good. And I think I've been pretty harsh on Raya on this pod. You got to give him credit when he's played decent. So I thought he was decent. Havertz didn't really do anything again, though. I mean, he didn't really do anything terrible, but he just flat as to deceive, man. Just did pretty much nothing in the game. I think Saka got, I don't know if it's been given an assist because of their own goal, but he obviously swung in the corner for the second goal. But he was pretty quiet throughout. I thought that whole right-hand side, Ben White, was pretty quiet as well. I'm kind of waiting for him to explode back into how he was last season, but it doesn't really look like it's coming. But everyone else was good, man. I'd give everyone else 7s out of 10s. Gabriel Martinelli, I'd give 8, 9 out of 10 because they kind of were the game changers. But yeah, man, I thought it was a good performance. I think you covered it well. But yeah, I wanted to ask you about the set play reliance, because it's not a consistent theme. When you score 3 goals or 2 goals from set pieces, and then your other 2 goals from open play are kind of like late counter-attacking goals. Do you still have any concerns about your overall performance from open play, or do you think that will come?
I think it's not even about that will come. I don't really care about how we score as long as we score, right? So the issue I always had is if we're not scoring and the things that they're trying, aren't allowing us to score, then we've got to change something up. So if this is where we've got to go and we turn into bloody Stoke overnight and we're just throwing balls into the box and long throws and whatever else, I couldn't care less, because at the end of the day, we've seen teams set up against us in this fashion where they make it almost impossible to play any kind of attractive football, right? Like if you stick 11 men behind the ball, all very deep in your area, then what else are we going to do? Essentially, all goals are going to come from maybe not set pieces, but they're going to come from crosses, right? They're going to come from like Saka whipping a ball into the box and someone heading it in. So from my point of view, I don't really care if it's a set piece goal or an open play goal. If that's how teams want to set up against us, we need to incentivize them or disincentivize them from doing that. So if we can build up our prowess in the set pieces and we can show them, actually, you know what, you don't want to give us corners, you don't want to give us free kicks, you don't want to give us opportunities to play the ball into the box in the air, then maybe they'll start having to open up again and they'll start having to defend in a different kind of way, right? Like the biggest example I can give is Liverpool. Liverpool don't set 11 men behind the box when they play us, behind the ball, when they play us, do they? They come out high pressing us, and it works really well, putting loads of pressure on Saliba and Gabriel and Zinchenko and whoever else, winning balls back quickly. Even look at Fulham. They didn't set up like that against us. They were super physical, pressing us high, not giving us time to breathe on the ball. But at the same time, we end up creating more chances when teams play like that against us. So I'm happy to see it, to be honest with you, because we can't just keep on trying to do what we've been doing before, which is just trying to throw shots at the goalkeeper over and over again when someone plays a low block against us. It doesn't work. We've seen so many times like matches where we have like 30 shots, but two big chances because we're just having to pump balls at the goalkeeper over and over again because we can't get in behind them. We can't create space. They're just defending compact. So from my point of view, I think it's a good thing. I want to disincentivize teams from coming to the Emirates or even playing at home and just packing people out and playing like Jose Mourinho out here. So if that's what we've got to do to disincentivize people from doing that, then that's what we've got to do. So Nicholas Jova and all these other dons, keep doing what you got to do. Throw Gabriel's fat head at the ball over and over again. Get me some goals like that, and maybe teams will have to open up against us, and then we can play the kind of attractive, silky type football that we were playing for a large part of last season.
No, I hear you, man. I think, and I'm probably critiquing my own question here, but like a lot of the time when a team does a certain thing pretty well, then everyone kind of goes, okay, you've done that really well now. How about this other aspect of the game? Like everyone's striving for ultimately perfection, which I get it. Like these are the levels City have taken, and Liverpool have also contributed to, taken the league to now, where you need to either be the master of your craft and have almost a impenetrable style, or you need to just be a jack of all trades and be like exceptional at everything. And I think the latter is almost impossible. I think the approach of defining one particular style, whether it's a reliance on set pieces, whether it's overloading with gegenpressing or whatever it's called, or whether it's just passing people to death, you've got to have a style and just absolutely master it. I don't really believe there is scope for a team to play like Sir Alex Ferguson's Man United used to play before, which was, we could pass you off the pitch, we could play counter-attacking, we could get a bit more physical. It really was horses for courses. Now, I don't really think you're able to do that the way football is, the level of athleticism that's in the game, the money that's in the Premier League. If you try and do that kind of stuff against a Luton even, who pretty much do, a really solid base and then hoof the ball up and rely on a lot of crosses and set pieces and stuff like that, you'll lose, or you'll find it very, very difficult. So, I think you guys should be praised for this really effective set piece play that you had on the weekend. And then, of course, try and work and improve other areas if you can. But I think we overlook set pieces so much. Honestly, I think...
Yeah, mate, James Ward-Prowse has made a career out of him, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but he's a decent player from other things as well.
I don't mean that in a harsh way, but I mean, like, you've got players in the game today that are literally set piece specialists.
Yeah, look at Rory Delap with the long throw. That was very effective for a long, long time. I mean, it's not really sexy football. I think that's understandable. Scoring goals from set pieces are not always the sexiest style. Although I would argue, seeing David Beckham swing one in the top corner was pretty bloody sexy to me when it was happening. So it depends on how, I guess, people see the game of football or, your own team. If you have this set identity where you have like a Arsenal way or a United way or whatever. But I think it's a good thing. And I think you should be able to score goals from set pieces. We talked about it last week with the United Spurs game. Spurs, don't get me wrong, Spurs played really well from open play as well, but all of their danger came from set pieces. And I don't think there's no slight you can put on them for that. They've obviously been working on it and spotted a weakness in the opposition team. I give you guys massive praise for doing that against Palace, because I would have never thought set pieces was something you could exploit to get goals against them, because they've generally got a bunch of houses and massive units in defence and attack that they can fill the box with to be able to defend and attack set pieces. But you guys spotted a weakness, or you came up with a strong tactic from set plays, and it worked a charm, man. So I think you should be credited.
And what did I say like 3 weeks ago? I there's a clip of me literally saying we've got a bunch of units in our team now, right? Why are we, we're trying to play really centralized, passing people to death type of football against really low blocks? Why? Let's use the people like Gabriel and Saliba and White and Rice and all these players that we've got that are big, right? And I think I can't come on here and complain after I literally asked them to do that 3 weeks ago, right? Like when I'm asking a team to do that, it's because there's no other way for us to break down these teams. And I think you characterized it perfectly, which is there is no ability to play total football anymore, right? I don't know why, but over the last, let's say 10, 15 years, we've seen teams gravitate towards two styles essentially, right? And one of those, I would say, comes directly from kind of Pep type of football, right? And I would even say from Wenger type of football 20 odd years ago, which is just play teams to death, just control possession all day, just pass it round, find space in little pockets you can, and then just finish if you can. But the other side of the things is that, like, when you play up against loads of teams like that, what's the only way to break them down? The only way to break them down is compact, low block, everyone behind the ball type of football, right? And unless you've got a De Bruyne who doesn't matter what kind of style you play, he's going to find a space regardless. It's a pretty effective style of football. So I think like the league today really has gravitated towards those two styles of football to the point where someone like Ange comes in or someone like De Zerbi comes in and they play a different style. They try to play a little different from everyone else, try and combine a couple of different things. And everyone's like, wow, it's the next coming of Christ. So I think that's the point we're getting to in the Premier League today. So I'm happy to see set pieces. I'm happy to see, big teams play a different style of football because you end up seeing the same styles over and over again. And that's probably the biggest thing I'd put on Pep. And it's why I've called him out before is I'm sick of watching teams that play like that, right? Like it seems like it's just the default style every big team with money goes to. Is like, all right, we're going to play Pep style football and just play someone else off the park. High possession, centralized football, no bombing wingers anymore, just cutbacks all the time. So I'm happy to see it. And I'm particularly happy to see Arsenal do it as well, as long as we can do it well.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think it's warranted also just because you guys did play quite an expansive attacking style last season. So it's not like you guys can only do this set piece based style. You've proven last season that you were able to do a different, very attacking, more flamboyant, free kind of attacking style. Obviously, it's a little bit different in terms of personnel this season, so you might not be able to replicate it identically, but at least you've got another string to your bow now, and I think that is what you were asking for, to see you guys play with a slightly different approach. So I think you can only praise it now. I agree with you on the trend of football. I've seen other content creators say, oh, football's dead, or it's not the same anymore. I wouldn't go to say that. I just think innovation in football's dead. So you're right. I think there's maybe more than two. There's probably three. I would classify Klopp's kind of heavy metal football as a third alternative style, which is still pretty attacking and very like pressing based, but in terms of high tempo, which I think, I resonate more with as much as I bloody hate him and, hate Liverpool, because that was the style of Man United football that I loved the most, of the different styles that we implemented during Fergie's time. So I really appreciate that. And I have to say, like you said, those three styles, essentially what became, or has always been Pep style, what's always been Klopp style, and kind of what Mourinho style morphed into at the end, are kind of the three styles that you see used throughout the leagues. And they, like you said, as soon as someone comes in and tweaks something slightly, because I would still I'd classify maybe Ange's style to be a little bit more Kloppish in terms of like it's moving the ball really quickly, not many touches, still also, a lot of wing play. You see their fullbacks do a lot of work, although I know they've got inverting wing backs and stuff, but you look at Porro, he's very much, moving like a bit Trentish. And then you look at De Zerbi's kind of like, he's taken Pep's style and just done something even more radical to it, where you got, overlapping bloody centre-backs and all this kind of stuff. So those little tweaks are being revered because they're just something slightly different. And we just want to see some slightly different football. We're not talking for, we're not trying to get Ryan Shawcross back to try and kick people's legs in half or anything like that. But come on, man, we want to see some sort of different football. So I agree. And even though our style of play reeks, I somewhat am happy with the fact that Ten Hag hasn't just come in and just gone, I'm just going to copy exactly what Pep's doing. And he's at least trying to do something that is somewhat his idea. God knows what the it is. But at least I know it's not exactly the same as Pep. And let's hope he can improve it and get it to where he's going. But, it's something for me to hold.
He's thinking outside the box, but clutches. His thoughts are
yeah, it might be a box. Who knows? But it's definitely outside the box. But anyway, last question on the Arsenal side. You guys haven't got a game now. It's back to the earlier point for like 10 days or something. Yeah. I believe it's away to Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, on Tuesday next week.
Yeah, I don't know if that's an easy, difficult game. I'm not even sure how to really even read that. But then you've got Liverpool at the Emirates, I believe, on the weekend after. And then you go to Upton Park, or what used to be Upton, not Upton Park anymore, the London Stadium, or whatever West Ham's ground is now, the Olympic Stadium. So you've got really 3 pretty tough fixtures. Once you get through those 3, how do you see the table looking? And do you think you'll be back in the race, or do you think you'll kind of be sucked more into the top 4 battle with Spurs? Where do you see that these 3 games going?
I mean, against Nottingham Forest, not an easy game because I mean, Nottingham Forest, generally speaking, the City ground is really hard to play against, right? Like they
get bumping. Yeah,
they're one of the few teams in the league where they really get bumping, right? So I don't think that's going to be an easy match to play. Also, the fact since like Nuno's come in, they've been a bit better, right? They've managed to. They're not out of the relegation battle at all, but you know they're 16th now, so they're not doing terribly. I think the last home game in the league would have been against you guys, and they won. So from that point of view, it's not an easy game, but I do think we'll just about win it. The Liverpool game, however, I think they've got our number at this point. I couldn't care less if it was at the Emirates or not. I think Liverpool have our bloody number, and I've unfortunately seen Liverpool beat us at home in person before, and I can see it happening again. Right, as much as I said all that about like Salah not being part of their team and they look quite different, they've got everyone bloody stepping up, right? Like Jota bagged in their last game. Curtis Jones has turned into flipping, I don't know, Iniesta or something for some reason. Like they've got players playing Iniesta. Well. Exactly. They got like Bradley, all these young little dons coming through as well, looking good, getting, an arm around their shoulder from Klopp. So I think it's going to be a really hard game, and I could see us kind of probably losing that one. So I think if we look out like at the back of that, I think the gap between Liverpool, City, and then Arsenal is going to be quite large. I could see us even dropping down to maybe 4th, depending on how we do against Forest. But I'm pretty resigned at this point to losing to Liverpool. So I think we'll probably get dragged back into this 3rd, 4th place playoff type of thing that we're doing. And I think City and Liverpool will be ahead. I think they could probably be 6+ points ahead at that point. So I wouldn't say we'd be back in any kind of race, because I think now City with bloody De Bruyne back, with Haaland coming back soon as well, it's a difficult proposition to try and get anywhere near them. So I see it being a Liverpool City race to the top, and I think actually it could be really exciting. And maybe even as an Arsenal fan, I'll have like a weight off my shoulders not being involved in it, because last year was absolutely unbearable. Those last 10 or so weeks were horrible. So I don't think, back end of these results, I don't think we're going to be back in the title race by any stretch of the imagination. I think we'll be 3rd or 4th.
All right. I mean, come on, man. I get what you're saying. I think that's probably, you're being very realistic, but it was good to be back in the race for you guys last season. You were back in the big time.
No, of course it's great to be back in the race. It's not that I don't like being in the race. It's just as a fan.
It's nerve-wracking, of course.
It's nerve-wracking, and particularly what happened last year, I'm even less, looking forward to it, to be perfectly honest with you, because, I need to see us actually win one. And then maybe, I'll be a bit more confident, and I'll be a bit more, I don't know, like a Liverpool fan, who knows.
You got to be in one to win one, though. That's the thing. And I get it, though.
No, I agree.
The thing is, everyone said this, whether it's pundits, content creators, even some ex-players and stuff. The best way, or the only way we've seen a team defeat Man City have been that one year that Liverpool built up an early lead and got it to the point where it was just insurmountable. And then kind of Man City kind of gave up because the lead was so big. They were like, I don't even think we can make this up. Yeah. And you guys, both you, Liverpool and Arsenal, had the opportunity to build up that lead nice and healthily when City were away at the Club World Cup, and you both kind of fumbled it. And then, your results, your fumble just lasted a bit longer. Liverpool kind of have managed to address it and turned a few draws or kind of, slightly dodgy results into some victories over the last couple of weeks. So I get it. When teams actually been in a race with City, they generally lose. or every time
Yeah.
in the recent times they lose. So I understand why it's a bit of a daunting one. But I don't know, man. I know last season you lost to Forest in this same fixture. You drew at home. Oh no, you beat Liverpool at home. That was early in the season, and then
I mean, you got West
drew
Ham after
away.
that as well.
Drew,
We've got
drew or
West Ham
drew
after
away.
that, and
Yeah,
that was a trip up last year as well, wasn't it? So
exactly.
what,
So
3 trippable games right now?
yeah, it'll be interesting to see though by the time the West Ham games, whether West Ham game comes around, whether or not Kudus is back, because he'll be big for them to get back because he's absolutely firing at the moment. So
And Bowen as
I
well,
don't
right?
know
'Cause
though.
isn't he out? He was out for like a month. He might be back for that game. I'm not sure the
Uh,
latest
I'm,
on his injury, but I think he was out. They were saying it was going to be about a month when he got injured, right?
but he was back yesterday against
Oh,
Sheffield
is he
United.
back already?
Yeah,
Bloody hell.
he was back already. Yeah.
Damn
So
it.
I don't know. They lost a few people. I think they've lost at least Kudus, but they might have lost another player to AFCON. I think Paqueta's
Maybe
been injured
Aguerd.
as well. So yeah, Aguerd
They
must
lose
have gone as
Aguerd.
well. So
Yeah.
yeah, they must have lost Aguerd to Morocco. So they're missing a few players. So it really depends whether they get them back. But I think I've got a better feeling about these 3 games than you do. But obviously I'm supposed to be neutral, but I'm an outsider on this. So I think you'll beat Nottingham Forest. I think you'll actually beat Liverpool at home as well. And I think the West Ham game is the one that could be the real tricky one, depending on if they get their players back. If they get their players back, I could see you guys potentially losing that. But if they don't, I think you could get 9 from 9 on that. And I think if you do get 9 from
If we
9,
get 9 from 9, we're back in it.
you are completely back in it because you would have gained. You would be a 6 point swing on Liverpool. Which is amazing, really, to drag them closer to you, and then you're kind of in and around City anyway. So I think you'll still be in the title race. I wouldn't put you favourites or anything like that. I think that wobble a couple of weeks ago has definitely kind of made you guys a bit more kind of dark horses or the third wheel in this title race. But I still think you're going to have a say in it because you've still got to go to the Etihad, don't you? After this as well, you've still got to go to Spurs as well away. You've still got to go to Old Trafford. I know we're not really involved in anything, but then you've also got to play. Is it Villa at
We've
home
got to play
as well?
Villa. We've got to go to Brighton as
yeah,
well. He might pick it up. We've got to play Newcastle again in
at
late
home,
February. So we've got to play Chelsea
but
as well. I know they're not that great, but we've got to play them at some point too. We've still got a lot of real hard games coming up, man. I think if we are back in it, then that's all well and good, but we've got to we'll have to prove it out that, like, if we end up winning the league this season, it will be from just a disgusting run of games this last 17 matches. Because, like you said, City, this is City's time, right? This back end of the season is when City shine the most. So if we can come from where we are right now and win the league, we're going to need really flawless performances against all these big teams over the next 17 odd game weeks.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I agree. I think you're going to have to. I wouldn't say have to be perfect, but you're going to need to go on like an unbeaten run for the rest of the season, or you're going to have to win like 14 out of the next 16 or whatever it is, 17 or whatever to have a realistic chance. You're going to have to really, really go big because I think as much as I don't believe Liverpool win, they're going to drop points with draws. I don't really see them losing too many games. They might lose at home to City. They might lose away to you. But I don't really think they're going to lose any other games aside from that, really. They're going to be... They've seem to have that mental strength. Yeah, they seem to have that mental strength again. And even though I'm not overly enamoured with their midfielders, the Hungarian Steven Gerrard, SpongeBob and all that, I think they've got enough pieces to potentially, we've definitely seen league winning teams look worse than this Liverpool, but 100%. I just think Liverpool are just going to come short when City are finally go all guns blazing, because that KDB with Grealish's haircut is a different animal, is a different beast, man. So let's see how they go. But anyway, that's enough for the segment on Arsenal. Let's move to Man United now, our FA Cup round 4 preview, because Arsenal won't be playing on the weekend, having gone out the FA Cup in the third round to Liverpool.
Thanks for the reminder, mate.
Yeah, just had to get that in there. Man United are the sole representatives from the two teams on this on this podcast to be left in the FA Cup. Back's getting a bit sore from holding it down this extra round. We're going away to Newport County. Exactly. Yeah, we're out of that already. Don't talk about that.
Exactly.
Newport County. I have to be completely honest. I don't know what league they're in. Are they in League Two or are they in the conference or something? No disrespect to the Newport County, while obviously being quite disrespectful. I'm not purposely being disrespectful, right? Like, they got a win against Eastleigh, who I'm pretty sure they're definitely not in the leagues. I'm sure they're in the Vanarama or the National League or something. So yeah, they obviously had to overcome potentially a bit of a giant killing in the previous round, and now they're going to host us. I believe it's on Sunday afternoon. So I'll kick off the prediction for this. I think we're going to win 2-0. We should batter them, but I really see it going quite similar to that Wigan Athletic game, where we kind of score a goal, have loads of chances, very wasteful, but we end up sealing the deal. But I wouldn't be shocked if it was 3 or 4, but I'm not expecting it. The way we've been converting chances, I think we're near the bottom of the league for chance or shot conversion. So I'm not expecting us to suddenly turn that around, even if Newport County are in League 2 or League 1 or whatever league they're in. I think we're still going to have the same struggles. But I'm going to go for 2-0. What do you think, Johns?
I was actually going to go for the same result because I think, as much as I want to say that Newport County will beat you, I don't genuinely believe it. So I'm gonna go for a 2-0 United win. I think it could possibly be 3 because I think, again, I'm just waiting for you guys to perform well, and it hasn't happened so far. So next game is as good as any, and it's probably one of the easier fixtures you'll get this year. So I think from that point of view, I'd like to see a 3-4-0 from you guys. And you know what? I'll do it. I'll be positive about you. I think you're going to win 3-0, mate.
The times are so hard that someone has to go out on the limb and say we might beat a League 2 team 3-0. How stinky is that? But yeah, anyway, thanks. I appreciate your generosity. I'll take it 3-0. I guess we should also probably preview the next round of Premier League games because most likely our next pod won't come out before then. So we talked about it a little bit earlier, but let's get your prediction for Nottingham Forest Arsenal. What do you think the score will be, Johns?
I'm going to go 2-1. 2-1 okay. Arsenal, sorry. 2-1 Arsenal.
2-1 Arsenal. All right. And I'm guessing, how do you think the game's going to go? Do you think you'll make the 2-0 lead, or do you think it'll be a bit of a back and forth with Forest with the home crowd behind them?
What I've learned this season is that if we go 1-0 down, we don't win. Doesn't matter how bad the opposition is. So I'm going to say that we go 1-0 up, they equalise, and then we get a late sneaky little goal and end up winning it. But I think it's going to be similar to some of the other games we've seen, which is not a riveting affair, not great football played on either side. But I think, based off of just like the bounce that we'll get from the Crystal Palace game, even though it will be ages since then, I still think, the travelling fans will be up for it. I still think our team will be up for it. As long as, Declan Rice doesn't have a proper hamstring injury and he's playing, I can see us winning that. So I'm going to go a 2-1 Arsenal win.
Okay. I actually think you're going to batter them. At least for the scoreline anyway. I think it will be 3-1 at least, maybe 4-1. But yeah, I think you guys are going to turn up now. And I think this next run of games, I think this 5-0 win is going to really give you a boost in these next run of games, at least, until the Liverpool game. And then, it might come crashing down depending on how Liverpool play and whether or not you guys have the belief to get it over the line with them. Because I know you beat them at home last season, but, Liverpool have been a kind of, like Man City, a bit of a bogey team for you. So I think this game will be the nice launch pad to take you into that one with a bit of confidence. So I'm going to go for 3-1 Arsenal. And I think, you guys will deal with it relatively comfortably because, man, I know we lost against Forest and it wasn't all to do with the crowd. We were absolutely abysmal, right? And Forest didn't actually have to play that well. But their crowd are are like the epitome of a 12th man. They were loud, man. I can't remember a game that I watched on TV sounding like that loud, and the crowd just being up for it from the first whistle. So yeah, I wouldn't rule out having some hairy moments and being under the cosh, or needing to rely on a bit of luck here and there, or some big saves or big moments from Saliba or Gabriel or something to pull you out of trouble. But I think you'll win the game quite comfortably. But let's go on to the United fixture of that game week. We're away to Wolves on the Thursday, 1st of Feb. I'm going to go for a 1-1. So, I don't know if you can tell on my face. Those of you watching on the YouTube will probably be able to tell. John's probably can tell as well. I actually, in my heart of hearts, I think we might lose that game, but I can't predict the loss. Like the level of we are right now, I have to try and give any ounce of positivity to us in any form. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 against Wolves, but I think it's going to be so tight. And this actually, I have to give massive credit to Gary O'Neill. I went back and looked at our pre-season predictions, and again, it just reminded me how much of an idiot I am, because I put Wolves going down, and I know they've had a couple of rough games recently and been on the wrong side of a couple of results, but still, Gary O'Neill impresses me, man. He's such a promising up and coming manager, and I think he will have scoped out all the deficiencies we have in our team. He'll come up with a plan, and I'm sure he'll put us in a lot of trouble in that game, but I'm gonna give us a slight chance for getting a decent result and getting a draw, just because we might have, Rashford might come up with a moment of magic, or Bruno, or Højlund might have gathered a bit more confidence now after his goal against Spurs. But yeah, I think we'll get 1-1. What do you think, Johns?
I actually think you're gonna win.
No chance. What is this?
I just go against my better judgment when it comes to you guys, right? I think Wolves will win. But no, I think United will win it. They've Hwang Hee-chan's, depending on how South Korea do, he's still going to be gone, right? Nori, I know, is pretty good for them. He's still going to be gone, possibly. So, I mean, you might benefit from that. And I think you've got a pretty good record against them. I know that they didn't necessarily have Gary O'Neill for all of it. But, I mean, the last 3 games that you've played against them, you've won every single time. Right, you beat them in August, you beat them May last year, you beat them December last year, right? So, and now you beat them 1-0 away. So, I think this just might be one of the teams where you somehow manage to win every single time. So, I mean, I'm going to go for a 2-0 United win. I don't know what I'm smoking today, but I'm going for 2-0 United win.
Yeah, what's going on? We've role reversed. You've become the United fan suddenly. 2-0. Yeah, I mean, I could see a 1-0 to us. Or I could see a 2-1 to us. I can't see us winning.
Mate, I think you're all on the up from here, mate. You've got, Ineos in. You're going to get this Omar Barada guy. It's all uphill from here. So I'm going to give you a 2-0 win.
All right. I'll take it. I don't know if you're doing mind games with me or whatever, but I'll take it. We did get Omar Barada. I'm not going to be like all the other content creators and act like I've heard that he's so bloody sensational and all this different kind of stuff. We've nicked him from City. Ineos have come out saying the right things. He's apparently got, a big reputation in the football world. Let's just wait and see, man. I don't want to make any kind of premature predictions of our success. If they follow this up with another couple of like big proper football operators in the game at director of football and head of recruitment, then you know what? I might actually give it some more thought. But even then, I'm not going to jump on it until I see what we do in the summer. If we actually do some big boy moves in the summer with all of these guys in place, then I might start getting a bit giddy. But if I'm not seeing the right moves, if I'm still seeing McSauce, if I'm still seeing Slabhead, if I'm still seeing Martial get another contract, Victor Lindelof get another contract, Wan-Bissaka get another contract. If I still see all of these stale Deadwood Dons in our club, I'm not gonna. I don't care who our owners and leadership are. We need to make the right moves in the market, and I need to see tangible things before I'm gonna start saying that era's come to an end. take a hint, Ten Hag, you idiot. You shouldn't have said that. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But it's better than hearing we got bloody, another guy from University of Bristol or something, another banker that works for JP Morgan Stanley or whatever. I'm fine with nicking City's up and coming boardroom talent. But yeah,
he's getting out of there before the 115 charges come in.
That's
football operations officer of a League Two team.
That's what everyone's saying online. It's so funny as well to see the City fans flip flop now and go, that might mean we're guilty. He's jumping off the ship before it goes on fire. Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. The one thing to point out is he was the CFOO, which I didn't know was a position, by the way. It's totally a new thing for me. For the City Football Group and not City itself. So I'm sure there's other dodgy dealings they've been doing as a wider group, but he's not been responsible solely for everything to do with City in isolation. They've obviously got the other Don who does that, Cheeky and Ferran Soriano and all those guys that do that stuff. So yeah. It's just funny to see everyone flip-flop now and say, oh, he must be the guy who's done all the terrible things with 115 charges. That's why he's leaving you. I don't know, man. I just think Ineos came in with the vision and we didn't sell them something stupid. Like when we had a chance to get Klopp and we told them it was Disneyland for football. We've actually clearly got some people that know what they're doing in terms of a sporting operation and getting the foundation set. So let's see if that translates to on the pitch and we can actually build a good team. But yeah, it's early doors. Let's not get too over the top with it. But yeah, that's the preview section. Let's get into a special segment now. We're going to be covering AFCON and the Asia Cup. So obviously, there's an obvious and an unobvious part of this. Obviously, both of us have Asian heritage. The unobvious part is... I was born in South Africa and our mum is South African. So we've got some African ties as well. So we'll be trying to, raise... I haven't seen too much content around AFCON and Asia Cup. I know Sky Sports eventually got the rights like 1 week before the tournament. And I know Asia Cup is, on Triller or some kind of specialist app that you need to download and pay £10 a month. So that might be why people aren't talking about it too much. But I thought it would be a nice little segment for us to get into and just intro both tournaments. I think they're really interesting ones, actually. And I think they both get a lot of... I don't know if it's disrespect, man, because I feel like that's putting too much strength behind the fact that I think people just don't really care about them too much. I think people care a little bit more about AFCON because of all the great African players we've had in the Premier League in the last 10, 15 years. But even then, like, you've heard so many people come out and say, oh, why isn't AFCON in line with the European schedule? Because it's in Africa, mate. They don't play to the same schedule. They're not beholden to Europe to schedule the whole thing to appease us. But I do think there's just a lot of just kind of a blur attitude towards AFCON and Asia Cup. Everyone's just kind of like, oh, we're going to lose players to this tournament or these tournaments. When are they coming back? When are we through it? And when are we finished? But I thought the last AFCON was absolutely sick. The final, Senegal, Egypt, Salah versus Mane, penalty shootouts, the repeat of obviously like the World Cup qualifying playoff between the two teams. The narratives were galore, man. That's just the final. So I think it's a really interesting cup. And I don't know, last bit from me on AFCON anyway, before I switch it to you, John, to get your opinion on it. It's actually one of the more even continental trophies. Like, we could come out with totally different... We're going to do, by the way, winners, dark horses, flops, player of the tournaments for both AFCON and Asia Cup. But we might have completely different answers. Whereas if you look at our Premier League prediction, I think there was only 2 or 3 bits or, 4 things that were different out of, 10 or 12 predictions. I feel like we could have really different answers, and that just shows how open and even the tournament is. But yeah, what do you think about AFCON, Johns?
No, I think you're 100% right. I think it is generally disrespected in this country and in the rest of Europe. And when I say that, what I mean is we almost degrade it to the point like, why are those players going to go and do that instead of playing in our league? Like, why doesn't our manager tell them not to go or whatever else? And you get like like Napoli chairman and whatever coming out saying, I'm never buying an African player again, kind of thing. Like a lot of people look at it as like a nuisance to the schedule, which is ridiculous because the World Cup was last year at the same time, interrupting everything else, and no one was crying about it being, oh, why are our players going over there? I know obviously the World Cup is the World Cup, and no one would really ever do that, but generally speaking, I think we look at the African Cup of Nations and we think, oh, I'm not going to watch it. I don't really care as long as Salah doesn't get injured. I don't really care as long as so-and-so doesn't get injured, right? And I think that's the wrong way to look at it, because there's the same way, like all of us are so happy to watch Euros because England are in it, and so happy to watch the World Cup because England are in it. Like a lot of these favourite players of yours have as much, if not more, pride in their country, and they want to represent them in essentially the Euros of their region, right? So I think, and I would say it's not just AFCON. I think AFCON, Copa America, the Asia Cup, they all get the same level of disrespect, generally speaking, right? Like we don't really want to watch it because our country's not in it. And I think that's the wrong attitude, because actually what you'll find is a lot of your managers, a lot of your teams, a lot of your CEOs and whoever else are watching that, because there's a lot of stars that come from those countries. And as Anthony said, it's also really exciting a lot of the time, right? I watched the opening game. Me, it was brutal, right? Like it was old school football in a way that I like to see, right? It's like almost, you don't have all of this European elitism type stuff, like, oh, you can't touch him, oh, you can't do this, oh, you can't do that. Like it was like, it reminded me of like real old school football where, there it was quite free flowing, the referees let people kind of get on with it. And yeah, people might get injured and whatever else, but I mean, they get injured regardless because they're playing flipping 100 games a year. So from that point of view, I think it's a great opportunity for us as a country to see a lot of these players that we always say, oh, no one's ever heard of him. No one's ever heard of him here, but he's a star in his country and he's been battering it for his team for a long time. So I think it's, from that point of view, it's a great competition. And I would add to the fact that you said, Ant, there's a lot of horses in that race, man. Like in even in the Euros, right? Recently, it's been like a kind of like a 2-3 horse race max, right? Everyone's talking about England and France only, really, right? Spain kind of dropped off, Germany are dropping off, Holland haven't been so great. It's not all that even. The AFCON is bloody even, man. They got Senegal, they got Cameroon, they got Ivory Coast, they got Qatar, they got Egypt, they got so many teams that are sick. Nigeria, they've got loads of really good players, right? No, Qatar are banging it, bro. As much as you're laughing,
I know that's Asia. That's Asia Cup.
Oh, sorry, Qatar. Sorry, yeah, I'm mixing them all up. Sorry, yeah, but like you got Egypt, you got Algeria, you got Morocco. These are all really, really good teams, right? And we saw them do well at the World Cup as well. So it's one of them tournaments where like almost every year you get like different winners, and it's nice to see that. I want to see some other countries that are like, or some more competitive tournaments than just the same old teams winning everything, right? So from that point of view, I'm happy to see what's going on, because there's a lot of players from Premier League teams that, those teams are losing to go to AFCON, that are like the most exciting player to watch at that team. You see what I'm saying? Like Kudus, he's a baller. I want to watch him every day of the week if I can. Right? Even players like Mane who have left the league now, no one can ever say he wasn't an exciting player to watch. So from that point of view, I mean, Liverpool, they've lost their best player as well. So I'm excited to watch it, and I think there's going to be a lot of upsets this year, particularly.
Yeah, I think it's. I was joking about the Sky Sports thing, by the way. I don't think that was actually Sky Sports' fault. I read some other stuff about even in Africa, in other parts of the continent, the rights were only being sold off like really, really late, and there was a bunch of disputes. So I don't think it has anything to do with Sky Sports. They were probably, very willing to pay for the rights of the tournament ahead of time, but everything was delayed. So big up for them for actually doing it. I believe Carragher's been sent out there to commentate and report on the tournament, which is another, great move for them. I don't know how, qualified he is to talk about AFCON, but at least from a kind of PR brand perspective, sending one of your bigger pundits and football analysis people to a tournament like AFCON is only going to be good for it. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting tournament. I mean, it's been super interesting already. We're talking like it hasn't started. There obviously most teams are now wrapping up their group stages. I do think the way it's set up with the 6 groups, and the top 2 teams from every group, plus the 4 best third place teams, even though it does make it a little bit like messy in the last round of fixtures because you don't know what's going on, there's also an added excitement to it. I know the Euros operates in the same way. Asia Cup also operates in the same way. So it kind of adds a bit more kind of manic nature to the last game of the group because you're kind of checking
it's like
what's going on,
the last game of the season when like someone can
Yeah.
win the title, everything's to play for. So it adds a bit more jeopardy to that last game as well, which in a lot of tournaments, that last game ends up being like the game you ain't want to watch because everyone's kind of basically already through. No one really cares that much. So from this point of view, I think it's great for viewership and just generally adding a bit more excitement.
Yeah, it is. I think it's definitely the entertainment value goes up. I think the quality of there is an argument that how can a third place team out of 4 in a group manage to justify progressing in a tournament? You want the best teams, the quality, and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, there are so many groups with only 3 games. It's kind of hard to judge such fine margins. You don't have many games to fix things. It's not like a Champions League group where you have 6 games and you have a lot of games to try and fix things. And generally the cream rises to the top. Within 3 games, you could win one, draw one, and not finish second. And your performance has been decent. So it will be really interesting to see how all the groups shake up. But yeah, I'm a big supporter of AFCON, and obviously bias. I hope South Africa do well. They obviously slapped Namibia 4-0 yesterday, so that was good. Come on, Bafana. But let's get into our predictions then, Johns. We'll do winners each first. How about you go first? Who do you think are going to win AFCON?
I'm going to go for Senegal. I think at the moment they're doing quite well in their group. I think this is another thing that we were kind of talking about also, is that like a lot of these groups are very tight. There's no one like just smashing everyone away, right? Apart from Equatorial Guinea and Senegal, all the other groups are tight. So I'm going to go for Senegal because I think they've got the pedigree for it. I think they've got the players for it. And I think as much as like teams like Equatorial Guinea and stuff like that will do well, I think at a certain point it gets a bit too much, right? And it's kind of like Arsenal last season where you ain't done it enough before. I think it kind of bites you in the ass a little bit. So I think I'm going to go for Senegal. I think that they, of all the like traditional, I guess, big teams in the AFCON, I think so far they've probably looked the best, and I think they've got the quality to win the league, win the cup. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point. Honestly, I had to chuckle there. I never thought Arsenal would be compared to Equatorial Guinea in my life, but that's one
Mate.
for me to clip up and keep as a little memento. That's class. I'm going to call you that from now, Equatorial Guinea FC. But no, I actually think Nigeria are going to win it. You're going to laugh because they've obviously had a struggle, and you might have them somewhere else in the predictions. But
I do.
Yeah, man. I think eventually you can't have Osimhen. I know that Boniface got injured, but they've got strength, man. They've got strength in depth in that team. Throughout the whole team, they've got a really good spine, and they can't always underperform. So I think they finished second in that group with Equatorial Guinea now, but they've got 7 points as well. Equatorial Guinea are proving that they're actually not a bad team. So drawing against Equatorial Guinea is not the worst result. They literally spanked Ivory Coast today. So I'm going to go with Nigeria. I think they're going to come good. But at the moment, I understand your pick. Senegal have absolutely breezed their group so far. And they've had a pretty decent teams in that group, right? I think they've got Cameroon, they've got Guinea. They've got some good teams in there. So they've done really well so far. But I think Nigeria are going to... the Super Eagles are gonna come through in the end, and man, I can't see Osimhen stinking it up for the whole rest of the tournament. He's too good to do this. So yeah, I'm gonna go for Nigeria. Let's move on to dark horses then, John. Who do you think the dark horses? By dark horses, I mean actually go far. I don't mean just like win the group and then crash out. Who do you think will be able to get to the semi-finals maybe and be a bit of a shock?
I think Equatorial Guinea, and it's probably not a shock based off of the results that they've had so far, but I'm going to go for them as the dark horses because I think they're going to top that group. As much as Nigeria could come back, I think they're probably going to end up topping that group. And if I look through the groups now...
That group's done now. That group's done.
Oh, yeah, the group's done. Sorry, they've topped the group already, right? So I mean, if I look at the rest of the groups now, who I think is going to finish second, you got like Burkina Faso, maybe them and Algeria will fight out for second in Group D. You've got South Africa, Namibia, maybe will fight it out in Group E. Congo, Zambia will fight out in Group F. I think those that like that next round for them could be not easy, but I think it could be a favourable draw. So I think if we look at it like that, I think they could get at least past that first knockout stage, and then I think depending on the draw and depending on how well they can play. I mean, they've scored 9 goals already, right? In 3 games, they scored 9 goals. That's not too bad. So I think if they're not having problems scoring, I think they'll be able to beat some of these traditionally good teams. So I could see them getting to the semis, which I think for them has got to be huge. It's got to be a huge win, right? I don't know if they were coming into the AFCON with hopes of even getting that far. So I'm gonna have to go for them because the performances don't lie, man. You can't be. I mean, you're picking Nigeria to win the whole tournament, right? And they're in the same group and they've topped it. So I've got to say, they've got to be somewhere in that dark horse list. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I've gone for Cape Verde because I mean, David Gill, take a bow. Alex Ferguson, take a bow.
No wonder.
Exactly.
Stinks. Absolutely
But
stinks.
you know what? My man Bebe. Did you see that bloody 60-yard strike that he put in the other day? I know the goalie flapped at it, but that's still a banger. And he's been pulling them through a pretty tough group. I don't think anyone expected them to come out.
Ghana and Egypt are no slouches in this.
I mean, tournament. Exactly. I think Ghana and Egypt were certainties to come out of that group before Ed Bohr had been kicked. And both of them are looking like they're going to be scrapping around to try and get one of those best place, third place finishes to be able to get through. I know Egypt have lost Mo Salah, and that's. Although, to be honest, I saw some funny stuff about that. Like the last 3 times Mo Salah did not play for Egypt in AFCON, they won the whole tournament. So you never know. That might be a blessing for them. But yeah, I think Cape Verde have done amazing, and they're small country. They've not really got any pedigree in AFCON. For them to perform the way they are and basically qualify already from the group, I think that's amazing work from them. And yeah, with their star player being Bebe, there's some United ties in there. I want them to do well, and I think if they get a decent draw, I can see them maybe getting to a quarters or a semi. I don't think they're realistically going to go any further than that. I even think a semi might be a stretch, but I think big props to Cape Verde, man. Shout them out. They need to shout out, and I think they're going to have a really good tournament. And I think it will put them on the map a little bit, and you might be able to see, them perform better in future AFCONs and other international tournaments. So I'm going to go with Cape Verde. Let's go for flops then. I feel like I probably know who your flop is going to be.
I actually might change it. I might change it.
I've rattled you.
Yeah, you've rattled me a little bit, but also I've got a lot of Nigerian friends, and I don't want to get back. So I'm going to leave them alone, and I'm going to say for the hosts of the tournament, because they have already, I think, flopped it. To be perfectly honest with you, I think they might end up still going through. Oh no, they haven't. They've already gone out. So yeah, they've gone out, and they're the host of the group. They've got a pretty good team. So I'm going to go for Ivory Coast, mate.
Have they gone out already?
I mean, they could go through just on third place, but they've lost 2 and won 1. So I'm looking at some of the other groups. I think they're going to be on the bottom end of that third place going through anyway. So even if they do get through, I'm still putting them as the flop category because they need to be doing better in that group, I would say. So I'm putting them as the flop. I think, yeah, I'm gonna leave Nigeria alone just in case.
Man doesn't want to get the clap back. But yeah, no, I mean Ivory Coast. How many times have we seen this? It's a tale of two extremes, isn't it? With host nations at a tournament like this, they either get a huge boost and luck from the gods, or maybe some slightly dodgy officiating and get far in the tournament, or they absolutely stink it up and go out really early. And this looks like it's going to be the latter for Ivory Coast. So yeah, man, it's a really sad one for them as well. They've got some got some decent players in that team. They really got no business being third in that group. But this might be comeback for not, putting Amad Diallo in their squad. But let's go for my answer. I actually think Cameroon are going to be the flop of this AFCON, and that I've been trying to big up all the United players, but biscuit wrists. He's been stinking out for them as well. He's been doing it for them as well. And all of this chat about, he might only be rubbish for Man United. I don't think so. I just think he's just
he's
absolutely rubbish right now.
He's just generally rubbish.
And I don't know if it's form though. When you see a player and they just look like they've lost all confidence in their face and just like everything goes awry. He doesn't look like that to me. He still gives off like this air of confidence, like he's still puts his shoulders back. He looks like he's still, got something about him, and then he just does stupid shit. So, yeah, I think Cameroon. I know they haven't maybe got as strong a squad as Nigeria or a Senegal or an Algeria or Morocco or something like that, but they're a heritage AFCON team. You remember the Puma kits, the one-piece Puma kits, or the ones without the sleeves. Cameroon are they're legendary, man. They're heritage AFCON, and they are stinking it up. So yeah, I'm definitely going to put them as my flop of the tournament. I think I can't see how they're going to even get a win. Like I think they've got one more game left in the group, and I think it's against Gambia. So my household will be in trouble. I'll need to be supporting Gambia in that one. But I don't even think that's a shock. I actually think Gambia will beat them, or at least get a draw, which I think will put them out, right? So they won't even be good enough for that best third place position. So yeah, shocking. I mean, the downside for United is we probably won't even get to see Biendia now, because he'll be back by the time our next game comes around. Against Newport. So it'll literally be like he's played every single game for United, played 2 games for Cameroon, missed one because his flight got delayed, and they go out. So, yeah, man, I think Cameroon are going to be my flops of this tournament. Let's go on to player of the tournament then. Who do you think is going to be the player of your tournament for AFCON, Johns?
I'm going to go for Mane, because obviously I've got
Proper
Senegal
heritage.
winning. Yeah, I've got Senegal winning the whole thing. And I think, generally speaking, he's going to be critical to that. So he hasn't been great thus far. I mean, like he hasn't set the world on fire
He scored a goal, yeah.
Yeah, he scored a goal. He's got an assist. But I mean, like in terms of like, he's not, top goal scorer or top assister so far. But when it gets into the crunch time, he's been there, done it on the biggest stage, and I think he will not drag that team, but he will be there in the crunch time moments. And I think, you're talking about like the last AFCON finals and World Cup qualifiers and all these other kinds of stuff, right? He's been in that kind of position before, and he doesn't always come out on top of it. But I think generally speaking, he's got the experience, and I think he's also still got the talent. So I'm going to go for Mane. How about you?
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a good shout. I think he hasn't been amazing so far in the groups, but I think he'll start to turn it on as you get into the knockout stages. And he's the player in the tournament who's done it all and won it all from this edition of AFCON. So, yeah, you'd probably expect him to start playing better. I've gone for Mohamed Kudus. I know Ghana are sitting third in that group, but yeah, man, the way
they're currently beating Mozambique as well, so
yeah, they're going to go through.
A lot to do with their success, for sure.
Yeah, they're going to go through. And as much as Ghana have your Jordan Ayus, who I don't know how he's bloody in that team anymore, they've got Kudus, and he's he's a certified gunman. And I think anything good Ghana do in the tournament is going to come down to him. And I think they'll go quite far. I don't think they've quite got enough juice to win it all, but I wouldn't be shocked if they got to a semi-final or a final, just off the back of Kudus, man. He's just top quality, and they've got a decent defense. They've got a couple of decent centre backs, that are going to be able to help them get pretty far in a tournament. So yeah, I'm going to go with Kudus. I think he's going to be the Mane heir apparent. I think to Afcons, he's going to be the big shining star. I think in future tournaments, and also you've seen it for West Ham. I don't know how much longer he's going to be at West Ham because I think he's I think isn't that the rumor as well that he only went to West Ham and he turned down Brighton because he wanted to get release clause added into the contract and Brighton didn't want to do it. So I'm sure the fees are crazy. I'm sure it's like 80 million or 100 million or something berserk. But in a few years' time, or even in the summer, if he keeps going the way he is, I'm sure some people will be tempted to trigger that clause. So yeah, I've gone for Kudus. But yeah, that's.
And I mean, on top of that, I mean, one last thing I'll say is, I feel like after he started banging for West Ham, a bunch of West Ham fans went to bloody Ghana and watched a match just randomly. So they might have a bunch of Hammers there. They might have a bunch of Hammers supporting them.
Yeah, exactly.
Blowing bubbles in Ivory Coast out here. Who knows?
beating up rival fans and stuff. Yeah. You definitely want Hammers on tour supporting you. But yeah, I think he's going to be the player of the tournament when all is said and done. But all right, that's our little AFCON segment. Let's move on to the Asia Cup then. Yeah, like we talked about earlier, another kind of continental cup that's kind of overlooked by a lot of people. I think there's kind of a bit more understanding around why that is than maybe AFCON. I don't think we've had quite as many, superstar Asian players to grace the Premier League. You've obviously got Son Heung-min right now, who I think when it's all said and done, he'll be a Premier League legend. He's already hit the 100 club. I know he plays for Spurs and you hate him, but he's done a lot for Asians in England, in English football. But
Hwang
if you think
Yi-chan
past,
as well, who's lighting the world on fire at Wolves as well, mate. So
yeah, you've got a couple. You've got obviously Matoma at Brighton's been good. Endo's looked decent of recent weeks. Before that, time's gone by. You obviously had Park Ji-sung, who we've talked about loads on this pod, and one of my favourite ever United players. You had Lee Pyong-yo at Spurs. You've had Korean and Japanese players dotted through the league kind of since we've been growing up, really, but none have really hit the heights of Park Ji-sung and Son Heung-min right now. But I understand it. There's a little bit less kind of Asian influence on football in the English league, so I guess it's a little bit more understandable why people, I guess, don't make the same noise around the tournament. I also just think there's less Asians in the UK anyway, aren't there? There's obviously a bigger African diaspora in the UK, so that's probably why also fans also don't really pay too much attention. I've got to call out the Triller thing. I know Triller is owned by the same guys that are involved in, or not the same guys, but maybe investors in One Championship, I think, and then also like the AA Rising, the Asian hip hop collective as well.
Yeah, so I mean they've got big off of like influencer boxing and stuff, which kind of lowers my respect for them in general.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll support our fellow Asian businesses and all that. But the fact that that's the only way to watch it stinks. Like you can't be expecting me to download some random app that like Jonty said, that's known for bloody celebrity boxing and seeing all these random influencer dons fighting each other terribly to try and watch some Asian football. You got to make it slightly more accessible, even if it's an abstract channel on the TV that you have to pay a little bit of money for. I think you're going to get more eyeballs on it, and I think this is one of the things that is not going to help the kind of perception of Asian football in this country if you make it so difficult to watch. Like I'm sure TNT or Sky Sports or something like that, or even the terrestrial channels could have got it for cheap. Even slapping it on the Channel 4 or Channel 5 or something like that would have got more eyeballs on it. So yeah, hopefully the next time the Asia Cup comes round, and you'll have Matomas and Hwang Hee-chans and Son still banging in the Premier League, you might have a little bit more kind of interest in it, and you might get it on a mainstream channel. But yeah, it's been a struggle keeping up. But we'll go into the same kind of predictions. Johns, who do you think are going to be the winners of the Asian Cup?
So it's probably counterintuitive based on the fact that they lost to Iraq, but I'm going Japan. As much as I like South Korea and think that they've probably got the most star quality of all the teams in the Asia Cup. I think Japan, they show it in the World Cup every single time, right? They have the organization and the squad to go deep in tournaments, right? And I think as much as they might lose to Iraq or whatever else, I think they've got the longevity, they've got the staying power to do well in this kind of tournament. So I'm going to go for them, but I do think it could be a couple of other teams. It could be Qatar, it could be South Korea. I mean, it could even be Iran, Saudi Arabia. They're all doing quite well. Obviously, Saudi Arabia didn't do too terribly at the World Cup, did they? So come on, Japan, let's go.
But yeah, I want to say Japan. Obviously, we've got a little bit of Japanese heritage, so that's probably the only. China's already bloody. They're probably going to go out anyway, and they're pretty. So Japan are the only ones we can really cheer for in this situation. And I agree with you on everything you said. I do think pound for pound they've got the best team. I think they're a collective. They're a real team. I think they've got sprinklings of very good players in there, but they haven't got a Son, for example. They haven't got one big major star player, but they've got a really, really strong team full of players playing throughout all of the European leagues. And you've obviously got your Matomas and your Tomiyasu's and Endos and stuff like that playing at a high level in the Premier League. But I'm going to go for Qatar. And the reason I'm going for Qatar is this Asia Cup is in Qatar. So I think they're really benefiting from that home advantage, the opposite of Ivory Coast in the AFCON. And I think they've just looked really comfortable. I know they had an absolutely pants group with, with all respect to our Chinese brothers and our forefathers, but, we stink at football. And Tajikistan, no offense to the Tajiks out there, but yeah, you guys aren't really a football heritage team. And I can't remember the last team in there. Is it Lebanon, Johns?
Yeah,
Lebanon.
Lebanon.
Like, again, love Lebanon. Lebanese food is banging. Got Lebanese friends. Amazing country, amazing people. But again, not really a footballing nation. So they've had quite an easy run in terms of groups. But I still just think if they come up against an Australia, I think they could easily beat them. And I think in a one-off game against a South Korea or a Japan or a Saudi Arabia, I think they can match them and beat them on their day. And with that home crowd behind them, with all the kind of football fever that's surrounding Qatar as a country after the World Cup last year, I think all roads lead to kind of a fairy tale story for them. Obviously, some people don't love Qatar as a nation for various reasons, but I think, it would be a bit of a fairy tale for them. They've not a big traditional footballing nation. They've worked really, really hard to make themselves more of a football nation over the last 10, 15 years, getting a World Cup and all these different things. And I think they'll pull it off. But I'm not like 100% confident in it. I think it's a bit of a love story.
No, they very well could go and win it, but you can't have Man City winning everything, and then you can't have PSG winning the bloody league and every time, and then also go and win the Asia Cup. I'm not allowing it. No, come on, Japan, beat them. It's not allowed. You can't win everything.
You're such a wally. Man City or Dubai, you twat, or Abu Dhabi or whatever. They're not Qatar, so that's not them winning. PSG is.
Oh.
And it would have been Man United if Sheikh Jassim had won. Although, we didn't talk about that. Whether or not his bid was a big hoax, because you had that SEC filing that came out saying that Sheikh Jassim didn't share proof of funds, and apparently was offering way less. And it was all a big hoax, they said, basically. He's come out and denied it. But yeah, all of that stuff just made me think, bloody hell, is this Glazer spin? Or how are they managing to spin this? Or was that all just to, I don't know, kind of play the Ineos group to overspend on the 25%? But yeah, I think, back to Asia Cup, I think Qatar will win it. But I think it's going to be a good one.
I'll allow them, but I still don't like them for PSG, so...
Yeah,
no.
Fair enough. We hate
Come
PSG,
on, Japan.
And yeah, I want Japan to win. But yeah, that loss against Iraq kind of shaken me a little bit. I'm sure they can come back and win. I don't think it's, killing their chances completely. But yeah,
they'll be the Argentina of this cup, man. They'll lose to one team and then we'll go and win all of it. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, I believe that's possible. But let's go on to dark horses then. Who do you think are going to be the dark horses then, Johns?
I had Qatar or Saudi Arabia, because I think they both got relatively easy groups and they're going to walk through both of them, or they already have walked through both of them. So from that point of view, I think they're going to obviously top their groups, be in a position to play someone a bit weaker in their first couple of games. So I think from that point of view, they've probably got a road at least to get into like a semi or a final. So I think from that point of view, again, maybe they would as a country probably want to win it, and kind of consider themselves favourites or whatever. But I think generally the rest of the world wouldn't. So that's why I've got to put them in there. Because, I mean, Japan get into a final, South Korea get into a final. No one's surprised, right? So I don't think I could put either of them as a dark horse. I think Australia look a bit stinky recently. So it's got to be Qatar or Saudi Arabia because they're not, as you said, they're not traditional football countries, but they are performing like they should be. So I'll stick Qatar as my dark horse. But right, them and Saudi, I reckon, are the two to watch.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I've obviously got them winners, but it just felt a bit weird putting them dark horses because I know they're not really traditional footballing nations, but they're in that crop that could win the tournament. If you were to look at the betting odds on the Asian Cup winners, Qatar and Saudi would be in there. They wouldn't be the favourites. So you're right. I think Japan, South Korea will probably come first, maybe even Australia. But it just felt a bit weird putting them as a dark horse. But I agree with you. I think they're definitely going to go deep, whether they win it or not. I think is a difference between your prediction and mine. I've gone for Thailand. I don't think they're going to win by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they might be the surprise package that gets to the quarters and semi-final and kind of ruffle some of the feathers of some of these other, more favoured teams in in Asia Cup. And what's really interesting, I had a really good Thai friend. He's still my friend, but he was a really good friend of mine in university who loved football, and he used to tell me stories about how good Thai's like children or like junior teams were, and they were like some of the best in Asia, and they generally always won or got to finals of tournaments. And it was just this curious case of why they were so good at those younger age groups, but when they got older, they're like men's and adult teams just didn't perform. So they've obviously got like talent in the country and they're good at football, but for some reason, who knows? It could be multitude of reasons, right? It could be like family influence, cultural influence, or just other distractions that take them away from football, but they just weren't able to translate it into the professional game. But I think looking at how they've performed so far in this Asia Cup, I think they might be starting to just bring it together and do about enough to get to the quarters or semi-final of the tournament. I don't think they'll do anything more than that, but I think that would be a great achievement for them. And big up all my Thai friends and the country, because you want to see, just the same as AFCON, you want to see new nations kind of get in the mix and start kind of ruffling feathers and making it more exciting. Because we talked about it earlier. You love these tournaments being so open. You want to not be able to say who's going to win it at the beginning of the tournament. You want to be able to have shocks and loads of tight games. And I think they've already added a lot to this Asia Cup. So I'm going to go with Thailand. Johns, flops. Who are going to be your flop of Asian Cup?
South Korea. I'm willing it to happen.
Why are you saying South Korea then? Is it just purely Tottenham hate? What's the reason you're flipping the script on our South Korean brothers and sisters?
Yeah, it's the Tottenham hate. No, I'm joking. No, I think that they are, in my mind, they should be the favourites to win this, right? And I think the gap between them and everyone else should be relatively large. I would say of all of those teams, they're probably the team with, again, the only like real world-class player, right? That you could pretty much walk into a lot of the big teams across the world. And I think that player is also an attacker. It's not like he's a goalie or something, right? So he should be having a lot of influence on the game. I mean, from that point of view, they've also got a lot of experience. They've done well at international tournaments previously. They've done well at this tournament previously. So from that point of view, I think even if they go out in like the quarterfinals, I think that's a flop. They've got to be getting to the final or winning that tournament. So I'm going for South Korea. I don't care whether you get out your group or not. I don't care whether you get to the semi-finals. You're a flop. I need Son to come back to the league deflated. I need Tottenham to be crap. All right, so I need them to flop. Thank you.
All right, fair enough. That's John's PSA out there to all you Tottenham fans. He's hoping you unravel because of Son's flopping at Asia Cup. Yeah, I mean, I don't think South Korea are going to win, which I then think, can be debated whether that's a flop or not. I think they'll go far, but I don't think they'll win. And they should be expected to win. So I understand that's going to be a bit of an underperformance. But I've gone for Australia. I think they'll get through their group, but I think whoever they face, like they could be a big team that fall to the mighty Thailand in the next couple of rounds, or lose to a more kind of unassuming country or a country that you're not expecting to do too well. I can see them being the giant that gets killed. I don't see anything about them. I know they've won their first 2 games and they'll probably coast through their group, but yeah, I think they're kind of like Qatar in a way. They haven't got the hardest group, but the way that Qatar have gone about it, they've kind of balled out. And Australia, I think, just have been pretty steady. And I think as soon as they face a little bit of pressure against a good team or a team that's confident, I think they're going to crumble and they're going to fall like a deck of cards. So yeah, I'm going to go with Australia. That's no offense to Big Ange and his mates, but I think they're going to be the flop of the tournament. Let's go to the player of the tournament then. Johns, who do you think yours is going to be?
In similar fashion with my AFCON prediction, if I'm saying Japan are going to win it, I'm going to say it's going to be one of their team that are going to be the player of the tournament. So, selfishly, because I want him to come to Arsenal at some point in the future, I'm going to say Kubo.
Yeah, he's played what? He missed the first game.
Yeah.
But he's played in the second game. I think he got an assist in that, so he started off decent. I wouldn't be shocked at Kubo, man. I think Kubo's going to have a good game, a good tournament. It's just whether or not he's fully fit and whether he plays enough games, really. But talent-wise, he's a baller. So I think, that makes sense. I've gone for kind of the South Korean equivalent. Plays a similar position. I've gone for Lee Kang-in. Because he's a baller, man. And I remember watching him for PSG against Newcastle in that game where where Ali McCoist and everyone was moaning their baps off and Newcastle got screwed and all that kind of stuff. Lee Kang-in was balling. He was basically the only player in that PSG team that was creating chances and like moving the ball around and breaking lines and I was really impressed from that moment on. I've heard a lot about him because he's been a bit of like a FM wonder kid, bouncing around La Liga for a while, just like Kubo actually.
Exactly.
And then, he's gone to PSG, got the big move. I was kind of a bit skeptical, like, why has he gone there? This doesn't really make sense.
It's a graveyard for young players.
Yeah, but also PSG have changed their transfer strategy, and they got a bunch of young players in the last couple of transfer windows. And I actually think he's looked good for them, and I think he's looked good so far for South Korea. And I think he's actually stepped up and done more than Son and Hwang Hee-chan and a couple of other players that we kind of expected to perform well for South Korea. So I'm going to go for Lee Kang-in. I think he's going to be the player of the tournament and he'll be the shining light that helps propel South Korea into a semi-final, potentially a final. Very similar to my Kudu shout. I don't think they're going to be like the best, the player on the best team, but I think they're going to be the player that almost single-handedly or is the main driving force behind their team doing well at the tournament.
I think you're just secretly a PSG fan, aren't you? It's
Why?
hard to win it, and you got you got Lee Kang-in to be the player of the tournament, man. You're a shill for the Qatar Airways dons out here, aren't you?
This is where we have to pause the pod because Sports Social will be playing a ad roll for the Qatar Tourism Board. So yeah, big up. I'll be waiting for my brown envelope, Qatari dons. Thank you very much. But nah. I just genuinely think he's looked really good so far. And I think these big tournaments, just like the World Cup, they offer a chance, an opportunity for a player to like really make their mark and start their career in a big way. And I think the same way Kudus kind of did it at the last World Cup, and I think he's going to do it now at this year's AFCON. I think Lee Kang-in's going to do it at this Asian Cup. I think he's really going to he's really going to ball out and show people why PSG paid that money to get him in. And I think he's like going to be one of the next big Asian superstars, and potentially, the one who Son hands the baton over to when he retires.
I think it's a big
Yeah.
shout as well, because that team's hard to shine in, man. You've got a lot of good players in there. That's why I'm saying, like, if he does go and do that, then yeah, the passing of the baton has got to be coming up soon, because that's really been Son's team for a long time now, right? So I hope he does do well. Like, I think he is a class player. As much as I think South Korea will be the flops, I definitely think he's got the talent to put a team on his back. But yeah, I'm not sure. I just feel like if South Korea don't do well, it doesn't really matter how well he plays. He's not going to be seen, like, the whole team won't be seen as like performing well. But I can see what you're saying. He's definitely got the quality.
The thing about South Korea is they've got a lot of, like you said, they've got a lot of attacking power, but then their defense, apart from Kim Min-jae, is a bit threadbare, and I think they're going through a bit of a fullback crisis. They've lost all their fullbacks. I think they lost their starting goalie. They're in a bit of a crisis at the back, so it doesn't matter how well their kind of attacking players play if they've got virtually no first choice defenders and they're playing with their second or third choice goalie. And I would say their centre midfield's not the strongest anyway. Then they can't drag them to success solely based on their attack. So I'm saying he's going to be the player of the tournament, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be enough to get them to where they want to go, the promised land of winning the Asia Cup. I think they won't do that, but I think it will be in spite of Lee Kang-in's great performances,
best efforts,
and his stats. He's been doing well already. So yeah, that's my prediction. But anyway, we'll wrap up the pod here, Johns. That's the end of that segment, and we'll see how United do against Newport on the weekend, and we'll also see how you guys do against Forest and we do against Wolves before the next pod goes out. So yeah, just a heads up, we're going to be recording a special episode again covering AFCON and Asia Cup, but trying to do it in an interesting way. So look out for that. That will most likely be the next episode. But yeah, thanks a lot for joining, Johns. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, everyone. Cheers, Ant.